Joe, a lot of teams had a lot of success in this year's NFL draft. A lot of teams had double-digit guys get drafted: Michigan, Alabama, Texas, and others. I'll let you start off with this, but some teams that had some really good had a really good NFL draft.
Yeah, the only one that I think I want to really highlight here. I give a lot of credit to Steve Sarkisian, who we've unfairly criticized on this show at times. Before he got there, I remember it was always like the butt of the joke, and it was a commonly shared statistic that Texas would have a year where they had nobody drafted, or they'd have one guy drafted. They had the second most behind Michigan with 11, and their roster is reloaded and is not going to take much of a step back going into next year. Steve Sarkisian deserves a lot of credit to go from being that barren of draftable talent to now becoming a hub for draft prospects, for elite recruits, for elite transfer portal targets. We don't give him enough credit on the show, and I got to give my props to Steve Sarkisian, because this is an unbelievable accomplishment for them to turn around a program like this. And you know, maybe they never won a national title in his time at Texas. It's a crazy thing to just throw out there. For him to have this much of a turnaround is an accomplishment.
I do agree with you on there. They had a lot of really good guys drafted. They used the portal really well. They developed really well. I will just say this, okay? The question for a guy like him becomes: you're moving into a different conference, a better conference. How does that change? And what teams do, Joe, when you have that much success, you're going to get drafted because you got a lot of really good players. But can he sustain? Last year was his first year that he got to 10 wins. Can he sustain that? And that will be the ultimate question going into a better conference with him. But it doesn't change that he had a lot of really good talent, okay? And I guess the only question would be, should they have had more success, right? Should they have had more success with that many guys drafted? Should they have played for a national title?
I mean, they made it. They were a series away from being in the national championship game. I mean, they almost won. They almost won that game. They almost came back. And I know that they were down in a rough spot for a good chunk of it, but they came back. They scratched and clawed. So I mean, they made it way further than any of us expected. So
I said they were going 10-2. I was just wrong on the game. So I thought they would lose to Bama. But I'm with you. They had a good one. I think it's fair, Joe. We got to talk about Michigan. I mean, that's a lot of dudes to lose.
Yeah, but I'm also not worried though, because a lot of those their offensive line took a heavy hit to the point where I think like they had 6 offensive linemen invited to the combine, which is a hilarious statistic because there's only 5 that play on the field at a time.
Right.
Their offensive line is going to be an issue for them to figure out, but it didn't look that bad during the spring game. We forget that a lot of their best players that are going to be first rounders next year, they only had one kid go in the first round. It was J.J. McCarthy. A lot of their best players are returning: Will Johnson, Mason Graham, and Colston Loveland. So I'm not worried about them losing 13 guys. I think it's just the fact that they had that much roster turnover and they were that deep.
When you lose a good quarterback, I say a good quarterback, but when you lose a quarterback, let's see how you can replace. They still have a lot of really good pieces. Let's see how Sharon Moore does. I don't think it's fair to him. It's his first year being a head coach, so we'll see there. Joe, let me ask you a question. Are you worried about Florida State with all the guys that they lost? Are you worried about – look, man, Jared Verse, Brayden Fisk, Keon Coleman, Jordan Travis, who congrats to Jordan Travis for getting drafted.
I didn't think that was going to happen.
I just think that – I think he would have made himself into the first round too if he wouldn't have gotten hurt. That's neither here nor there. The bottom line becomes for me is, Joe, at some point you live by the portal, you die by the portal, or are you worried about Florida State here?
I'm going to ignore you said he could have gone in the first round. No, that wasn't going to happen.
If J.J. McCarthy, and especially if Bo Nix
No, Bo Nix was better than him. Michael Penix was much better than Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis was fine. He was fine.
Joe, you know how you dudes do. Y'all slob knob over a quarterback like everybody slob knobbed over JJ after everybody slob knob over Bo Nix. You know good and damn well neither one of those kids should have been drafted in the first round. And
they would have gone. They would have gone in the first few picks in the second round. It's a different era of quarterback drafting where if you like a guy in the second round, you're taking him in the first. So that's just how it works.
Because the 5th-year option. I get it.
I'm also not super worried about Florida State because I mean we talked about their portal additions. They had a very aggressive and quality portal class. They filled and fixed most of their holes because and we just talked about Marvin Jones Jr. replacing Jared Verse the other day, and he looked phenomenal in the spring game, and he's barely played at Georgia. So I think that they're one of the few teams that we can talk about losing a lot of guys and not really having to worry about it much, except DJU is, DJU.
Point exactly. All right. Any other team you want to get to here? I will say this again. I do think to get to, I want to say one thing. I talked about this earlier. Joe, you got to give Cortez Hankton some flowers here. I know we did earlier in the show, but that many guys drafted from one position group. A.D. Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, Jermaine Burton, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors. That's insane. That is utterly freaking insane to have that many receivers drafted in one draft.
A take you're going to hate. Don't be I feel like he could end up in the NFL next year.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
Well, I'm saying you're going to hate it because you're losing a great coach.
Oh, no, I fully could see it. 100%
He's totally going to be in the NFL. Somebody's going to hire him.
Okay.
I mean, the results speak for himself. He could never coach a single guy that goes to the NFL again, which is not going to happen. He's going to get a shot based on that list alone that you just said.
You could say the same thing about Brian Hartline. Question is, are you going to pay a receiver coach in the NFL over $1 million to be here?
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.